What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back to a new review. For today we have a very different looking phone. We have a phone called the Aermoo M1. So this is a rugged phone that has IP68 certification, and that means water and dust resistance. And I actually had the phone sitting in water for a few minutes the other day and it still worked fine afterwards. So that's definitely a good thing. We have a phone that has NFC, we even have wireless charging, we have a fingerprint scanner, and the phone is using the MediaTek Helio P25. This is an octa-core CPU and this is actually a very fast CPU as well. Aside from that, we have 6 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of internal storage, and as we've seen in the past, out of that 64 gigs of internal storage, you only have about 54 gigs left after that operating system, but the phone can also take an SD card, and of course you can use that SD card as internal storage. Now the phone is running Android 7 as well, and from the bands that I've seen that are available, you can use the phone anywhere in the world including the US, and that's definitely a big deal because we usually don't see a lot of phones from China that can be used in the US. So with this one you can use it anywhere in the world. Now the biggest downside to this phone is definitely the price, because this phone is not cheap. If you're looking to buy this phone, you're gonna have to spend somewhere around $380, and that's not cheap for a Chinese phone if you ask me. Aside from that, the phone is pretty big and pretty difficult to use holding it in one hand, and it's quite heavy as well, so it weighs around 290 grams. So aside from using this as a phone, you can probably use it as a weapon as well, because if you hit somebody with this phone, the phone is not gonna break and it's heavy enough to do some damage. And talking about breaking, well, I did drop the phone a couple of times on purpose to see if anything would happen to the phone, and nothing happened to it. Maybe a couple of scratches here and there, but overall the phone still works great. So if you're gonna drop this phone, chances are it will survive most drops. Now, it really depends how you're gonna drop it, because obviously if you drop it directly on the screen onto a rock or something, the screen eventually will break, but the phone is more shock resistant than most phones these days. On the front we have a 5.2 inches screen with a 1080p resolution. This is an IPS screen that has great viewing angles and the colors are nice and vibrant as well, so really no complaints about the screen, and it also gets bright enough so you can see it outside. Now it's not gonna be as bright as the screen that you would find on a Samsung device, but it gets bright enough. The screen sensitivity is also great and the screen can register up to 10 touches at the same time. And moving just above the screen there we have an LED notification light, and we also have an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. The picture quality from that front-facing camera isn't bad as long as you have plenty of light. So if you have plenty of light, as we've seen in the past, the pictures are pretty sharp and pretty detailed, but as soon as you don't have enough light, the pictures become a bit blurry and grainy. But again, we've seen that for a lot of phones in the past. The phone's body is made out of a combination of metal, plastic and rubber, and I have to give it to them. The phone looks pretty cool, and I've seen the pictures for the silver one online, and the silver one looks even better than the black one. So if you're looking into this phone, definitely check out the silver one as well, because I think it looks much better than the black one. So on the back of the phone we have a 21 megapixel camera. We also have a dual tone flash. We have a little door that gets removed, but you have to remove 2 screws before you remove that little door, and behind it you can find the 2 slots for the SIM cards and the slot for the SD card. So the phone can use 2 SIM cards and an SD card at the same time. We also have the fingerprint scanner, the place where we have the NFC chip, and lastly what looks like 2 speakers. However, in reality we only have 1 speaker, and the speaker doesn't sound that great, mostly considering the size of the phone. But here is a quick sample so you can hear for yourself how the speaker sounds. Moving on to the fingerprint scanner. So first of all, the positioning of the fingerprint scanner isn't that great, because whenever you pick up the phone, your finger goes higher than the fingerprint scanner, and then you kind of have to move the finger lower so you can touch that fingerprint scanner. So the positioning isn't that great, and the fingerprint scanner is not the fastest out there. I mean, it's faster than a lot of cheaper phones from China that I've seen in the past, but definitely not as fast as you'd find on a flagship. The NFC works great. You can transfer files in between phones, and you can even use Google Pay, so no complaints about that. But the wireless charging, it's a bit tricky. So first of all, I have 3 wireless chargers at home, and only one of them works with this phone for some reason. So even on the one that works, you have to position the phone in a certain way, otherwise it's not gonna charge. So the wireless charging is not as good as it sounds. And lastly, the picture quality from that rear camera. So as we've seen many times in the past, if you have plenty of light, the pictures turn out good. I mean, they're very detailed, they're very sharp, and the colors seem to be on point, but the dynamic range isn't the best out there. But for a phone from China, I was kind of expecting something like that. Now, unfortunately, the low light pictures don't turn out that great. First of all, the phone takes a while to focus in low light, and the pictures become a bit blurry, a bit grainy, so definitely a lot of noise in the pictures that you're gonna take in low light. So the camera on the back of this phone is kind of average, and well, I was expecting better considering the price of the phone. And now the most annoying thing about this phone. So the 6 buttons on the side. So you have 3 buttons on the left and 3 buttons on the right. So first of all, it's very easy to push those buttons every time you pick up the phone. Next, the buttons are very clicky, so listen to this. So it's very easy to push those buttons, and it becomes annoying because every single time you pick up the phone, you're gonna push a button. So on the right hand side, we have the power button and we have a push to talk button. This is like a walkie-talkie function, but I couldn't try that out because I don't have another one of these phones, so I can't really say if that works or not. Then we have camera button. So if you double click that button, you can start the camera, and then you can take pictures by pressing that button. On the other side, we have an SOS button. So if you hold that button pressed for about 5 seconds, the phone will send an SMS message with the GPS coordinates of where you are and whatever message that you have pre-selected before. So I guess that could be useful in some situations, but once again, that button is so easy to press that whenever you're gonna hold the phone in your pocket, you're probably gonna end up pushing that button and you're gonna send that SOS message. So yeah, the buttons are just way too easy to be pushed. And aside from that, we have the volume up and volume down on the left hand side as well. And moving to the top of the device, there we have a 3.5mm audio jack that's covered by a rubber flap that's kind of difficult to take out. Now you can use any 3.5mm cable, so any of them will work. And moving to the bottom of the device, there we have another rubber flap covering the micro USB charging port. And once again, you can use any micro USB cable with this device. So first of all, the phone supports OTG, and that's great because you can charge other devices, or you can connect like a USB stick if you want to read whatever you have on that. And the phone also supports fast charging. So charging the phone from 0 to 100 is done in about 2 hours and 20 minutes. And since we are talking about charging, we might as well talk about the battery life. So inside this phone, we have a non-removable 5580 mAh battery. And on one charge, you can go for about 2 days without charging the phone, and out of that, between 6 and 7 hours of screen time. Now, 6 and 7 hours of screen time isn't that much considering the size of the battery, but I think it's gonna be more than enough for pretty much everyone, so you can go for a couple of days without charging the phone. Performance-wise, I don't really have anything bad to say about this phone. That Helio P25 is powerful enough so it can keep the phone going no matter what you do with it. And of course, the Antutu benchmark and the Geekbench 4 will only confirm that. So we get somewhat higher scores that we would get from the Snapdragon 625. Personally, I didn't like the phone's UI too much. The skin that comes on top of that Android 7 isn't that great looking, and I've seen something similar in the past for the Doogie Mix or something like that, but I ended up installing Nova Launcher, and with Nova Launcher it looks much better, and I feel that it performs much better as well. Multitasking works great as well, but that was to be expected because we have 6 gigs of RAM, so you can keep a whole bunch of apps running in the background and the phone is not gonna close any of those apps. And if you like using the split screen function from Android 7, that one works good, and the Helio P25 is powerful enough so you can keep 2 apps running at the same time, and both apps will run pretty good as well. Gaming is also possible, and the performance is actually good and better than a lot of phones that I've seen lately, but unfortunately I keep pressing those buttons on the side of the phone pretty much every time I play a game. And that becomes annoying because sometimes you open the camera, sometimes that SOS message gets opened, so it does become annoying after a while. But if you manage to hold the phone in a way that you don't push those buttons, the gaming performance is pretty good. Moving on to the GPS unit inside this phone, well, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It only takes a couple of seconds for the phone to find your location, and once your location is found, the phone doesn't seem to lose it no matter where you go. So definitely a great GPS unit inside this phone. As for sensors, well, you're gonna find all the sensors that you'd find in a flagship device, including a gyroscope, so you could technically use this as a VR headset, but the phone is gonna be kind of heavy for that, but definitely a lot of sensors available. Connectivity wise, we have dual band Wi-Fi, we have 4G connectivity, and we even have NFC. Here in Canada I was able to use the phone on 2G, 3G and on 4G, and as I said at the beginning of the video, you can also use this phone in the US, but definitely check the bands before buying this device and make sure that the phone would actually work with your carrier. The speaker on top here gets pretty loud, so no complaints about that, and the call quality is also good, and so are the speeds for the 4G network and the dual band Wi-Fi, so really no complaints about connectivity. And it's time to conclude this video. So this phone is definitely not cheap at about $380, and for the price I was kind of expecting a bit more. The main issue that I have with this phone are these buttons on the side, because they're just so easy to press, and I feel that every single time you're gonna put this in your pocket, you're gonna press those buttons. I guess you can turn off that SOS button, and I guess if you turn it off that's not gonna happen, but the buttons should have definitely been better. Aside from that, we get a decent looking screen, we get decent cameras, we get decent battery life and pretty good performance. But the speakers on the back aren't that loud, and the wireless charging isn't that great. So I'm not sure if this phone is actually worth $380. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.